Ancient Egypt. The very name conjures images of majestic pyramids, powerful pharaohs, and an enduring legacy that has captivated humanity for millennia. This civilization, seemingly born from the desert sands, rose to become one of the most stable and influential in history, lasting for over 3,000 years. But how did this remarkable society, with its complex bureaucracy, intricate religion, and monumental architecture, first take shape? Our journey begins not with grand empires, but with the fundamental element that shaped every aspect of Egyptian life, the river Nile. The Nile was truly the gift to Egypt, as observed by the Greek historian Herodotus. Its annual inundation, predictable and life-giving, defined the rhythm of existence. This natural fertilization made the land incredibly productive. Each summer, the river would swell and overflow its banks, depositing a rich, fertile layer of black silt across the floodplain. This abundant agricultural yield, primarily wheat and barley, created a surplus of food. People could become artisans, scribes, priests, or builders, laying the foundation for a complex society. This surplus was crucial, as it allowed a large population to thrive and freed many from direct farming. With food security, specialized labor could emerge. Beyond agriculture, the Nile served as the primary artery of communication and transportation. It unified the long, narrow country. Boats could easily travel north with the current and south against it, making the movement of goods, people, and building materials remarkably efficient. This ease of transport was vital for a unified state, allowing for a centralized control and the construction of monumental projects like the pyramids far from their quarries. Egypt's unique geography, bordered by vast, inhospitable deserts, the Mediterranean Sea to the north, and river cataracts to the south, also offered natural protection. This relative isolation contributed to Egypt's long periods of stability and continuity, allowing its unique culture and institutions to develop without constant external disruption. Before the pharaohs, in what is known as the pre-dynastic period, roughly 5500 to 3100 BCE, early settlements gradually emerged along the fertile Nile Valley. Upper Egypt saw powerful proto-kingdoms centered around places like Nekane Hierakonpolis. These were small, independent communities that slowly developed farming techniques, learned to domesticate animals, and began to craft pottery. Archaeological discoveries, such as those at Nakkara, reveal the progression of these cultures. Nakkara saw simpler tools and settlements. Control over the Nile's trade routes and agricultural resources would have been a powerful motivator. Nakkara introduced more sophisticated pottery, early metallurgy, and signs of social stratification through grave goods. By Nakkara III, also known as Dynasty 0, distinct political centers began to coalesce. Lower Egypt had its own burgeoning centers like Buto. These regions developed distinct traditions, symbols, and even slightly different forms of early writing. Evidence suggests a growing desire, or perhaps necessity, for unification. And the red crown of Low Egypt on the other, symbolizing his dominion over both lands. Early forms of symbols and proto-hieroglyphs appeared on pottery and pellets, hinting at the administrative needs of these growing polities. The unification of Upper and Low Egypt, round 3100 BCE, marks the true beginning of dynastic Egypt and a monumental turning point in its history. Its position underscored the pharaoh's control over the entire Nile Valley. This pivotal event is often attributed to a legendary figure known as King Narmer, or sometimes Menes. The Narmer palette provides key imagery of this unification. It depicts a powerful ruler, Narmer, wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt. On one side, the exact nature of this unification, whether through conquest or a more gradual political consolidation, is still debated by historians. Regardless, it established a centralized state with a single ruler, the Pharaoh, who was now seen as the embodiment of both Upper and Lower Egypt. Memphis, strategically located at the junction of the two lands, became the capital of this newly unified state. The early dynastic period c. 3100 to 2686 BCE saw the consolidation of pharaonic power and the establishment of the essential structures of the Egyptian state. His vizier and chief minister, the brilliant polymath Imhotep, revolutionized architecture. The concept of divine kinship became firmly entrenched. The pharaoh was not just a king, but a living god, the earthly manifestation of the god Horus. This groundbreaking structure, built entirely of stone, was the world's first large-scale stone building. This divine status gave the pharaoh absolute authority, ensuring stability and unity across the vast and diverse land. Early royal tombs, known as mastabas, evolved. These rectangular, mud brick structures mark the graves of early pharaohs and high officials. Crucially, during this period, hieroglyphic writing became a sophisticated and standardized system. It was used for administration, religious texts, and monumental inscriptions. It stood as the tallest man-made structure for over 3,800 years. This written language allowed for efficient governance, detailed record-keeping, and the communication of complex religious and historical narratives, much of which survives today. The Old Kingdom c. 2686 to 181 BC is widely considered the first true golden age of ancient Egypt, often referred to as the Age of Pyramids. The sun god Ra was supreme, but the cult of Osiris, god of the underworld, also gained prominence. This era was characterized by a strong central government, immense prosperity, and unprecedented architectural achievements that still awe us today. It began with King Djoser of the Third Dynasty. A powerful vizier acted as the chief administrator, overseeing various departments. Imhotep designed the step pyramid at Saqqara for Djoser. It represented a massive leap in engineering and construction, transforming the traditional mastaba into a colossal monument. The Fourth Dynasty then ushered in the age of the true pyramids, culminating in the iconic structures at Giza. Pharaoh Snefru built several pyramids, experimenting with design, which led to the perfect form of the true pyramid. His son, Khufu, then commissioned the Great Pyramid of Giza, the largest and most famous pyramid ever built. Adjacent to Khufu's pyramid stand those of his son, Khafre with the Great Sphinx guarding it, and Menkaure. These pyramids were not built by slaves, as often depicted, but by highly organized, skilled laborers and farmers working during the Nile's inundation season. They were designed as eternal resting places for the pharaohs, ensuring their successful journey to the afterlife and their continued protection of Egypt from beyond the grave. Religion permeated every aspect of Old Kingdom life. They were often portrayed as caring shepherds of their people, more concerned with justice and welfare. Belief in the afterlife was central, with elaborate preparations, mummification, and tombs filled with grave goods to ensure the deceased's journey to the field of reeds. The government of the Old Kingdom was highly centralized, with the pharaoh at the apex. Regional governors, or nomarchs, managed the nomes' provinces but were firmly under the pharaoh's control. However, the sheer cost of building immense pyramids, combined with a succession of long-reigning, but perhaps less effective pharaohs, began to strain the central authority. Nomarchs grew increasingly powerful and independent. Hereditary succession became more common, gradually eroding the pharaoh's direct control. Climatic changes, including low Nile floods over several whole decades, also contributed to economic distress and social unrest. This led to the First Intermediate Period c. 2181 to 2055 BC, a time of decentralization and internal disunity. The central government at Memphis collapsed, and Egypt fragmented into a collection of smaller, independent regional states ruled by powerful nomarchs. Local conflicts were common, and there was a period of social upheaval and pessimism, reflected in the Lamentations texts. Despite the political chaos, art and literature continued to be produced, albeit on a smaller, more localized scale. Burial practices became more accessible to commoners. Eventually, stability returned, and the Middle Kingdom c. 2055 to 1650 BCE ushered in a new era of reunification and cultural flourishing. This restoration was led by Mentuhotep II from Thebes in Upper Egypt, who eventually reunified the entire land under his rule. The pharaohs of the Middle Kingdom, while still divine, cultivated a different image. An imperialistic era, which would see its pharaohs, like Hatshepsut, Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, and Ramesses the Great, leave an indelible mark on history. This period is considered the classical age of Egyptian literature, producing masterpieces like The Story of Sinew and The Tale of the Shipwrecked Sailor. Art became more refined, with more expressive and humanized portraits of pharaohs, moving away from the rigid idealism of the Old Kingdom. Egypt expanded its influence, particularly south into Nubia, establishing a chain of fortified outposts to protect trade routes and secure valuable resources like gold and minerals. Ambitious land reclamation projects, most notably the drainage of the Fayum Oasis, vastly increased Egypt's arable land and agricultural output. Trade routes expanded, connecting Egypt with the Near East and other parts of Africa, bringing in exotic goods and strengthening its economy. This era also saw the emergence of a more prominent middle class of scribes, artisans, and administrators, contributing to the country's intellectual and economic vibrancy. However, this renewed stability eventually gave way to the Second Intermediate Period c. 1650 to 1550 BCE, marked by the arrival of foreign rulers. A group known as the Hyksos, primarily Semitic people from the Near East, gradually infiltrated and then gained control over much of Low Egypt. They established their own capital at Avaris in the Nile Delta, ruling concurrently with native Egyptian pharaohs who maintained control from Thebes in Upper Egypt. The Hyksos, while foreign, introduced crucial military technologies that would transform Egyptian warfare, including the horse-drawn chariot and the composite bow. These innovations, though brought by invaders, were adopted and perfected by the Egyptians, proving vital for their future imperial expansion. The presence of foreign rule ultimately spurred a renewed sense of national identity and a desire for liberation among the native Egyptians in Thebes. Pharaohs like Seqenenre, Tau, and Kamose began the fight against the Hyksos, setting the stage for the final expulsion. This struggle culminated in the glorious rise of the New Kingdom. Egypt's most powerful, the rise of ancient Egypt, is a testament to the ingenuity, resilience, and unique spirit of a people deeply connected to their land and their river. From humble beginnings to monumental achievements, these early periods laid the essential groundwork for one of the longest-lasting and most influential civilizations the world has ever known.